Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from hpwl.co. This is Hypnosis for permanent weight loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Welcome to the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss podcast. We have a very special podcast episode here for you today. Today, I am joined by Jessica Papineau. Am I saying your name right? Papineau?
Papineau.
Awesome. And just to read her bio, so she's the founder of CSJ, a leading stylist company for high-performing female entrepreneurs and other women who simply want to look and feel their best. Can start to see why I have Jessica on today. She's spent over 25 years in the fashion industry, teaching women how to use fashion to serve their purpose, boost their confidence, and elevate their image. Jessica has styled hundreds of women, from moms struggling to dress their postpartum bodies, to businesswomen seeking to level up their careers, to seven-figure entrepreneurs and professionals in the entertainment, sports, and music industries, with the goal of helping women imagine more for themselves. Break free from what's holding them back and show the world who they truly are. Jessica is committed to empowering women to elevate their style and transform their careers, relationships, and lives. And as I've started to get to know Jessica, everything in that bio, I think, points to the fact that this is not just fashion, but it's also transformation. And I met Jessica about a month ago at a business meeting and got to hear her story and just immediately knew that I needed to have her share her story in the podcast. I've had stylists on the podcast before, but obviously everyone's story can create impact. And I know Jessica's will do that for you today. So Jessica, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Leslie. I'm just so excited to be here and share with your listeners and your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I love bringing on just people who have inspiring stories. Obviously, it's a bonus if there is a food, body, and weight component, but just empowering women to really live their purpose and, feel good in their bodies and in their lives is just, in my opinion, essential. And I know you'd agree.
Yes.
Um, and I know for all of my clients that when it comes to having a lifetime of struggling with food, body, and weight stuff, or just always up and down in diet mentality or emotional eating, there always is usually a story behind it, kind of a um, catalyst to when they started feeling insecure, when they started doing the body thing. Also, we could look at that from our passions. So I know your passion happens to be fashion. And
Yeah.
I know you kind of had a little bit of both going on with, some of the negative, traumatic type of stuff that could initiate that. And also, yeah, just the positive, pieces of it. But would love to have you start by just sharing a little bit about how you started and got into what you're doing today.
Yeah, I'm going to start from way back because I know that I was born with this gift to share with women. And my upbringing and my younger years, you would never in a million years think that a fashion stylist would have come from the family that I came from. I grew up in Maine, like the backwoods of Maine, very rural Maine, very poor town. And my parents had moved to this very small town called Buckfield, Maine, to live off the grid, like live off the land and live off the grid. And so growing up, no running water, even we had a hand pump, no electricity, of course, no television, wood burning stove to heat the whole house in the winter. We had an outhouse. We had a garden where we harvested all our fruits and vegetables in the fall and then canned them so that we had our food source for the winter. So it was really like bare bones. I never quite felt like I belonged in that family. I always questioned, like, at a very young age, what am I doing here? Like, I just didn't feel like I fit. And so I always loved fashion. I mean, I remember 4 years old going in my closet and pulling out the clothes that I had. And the clothes that I had were from Salvation Army. Like, my parents were not like into it, even if there were times where they weren't even wearing clothes. Okay. uh, so I would take all my clothes out of my closet every single day and make outfits out of them. And, didn't have a television. So, I learned at a very young age how to use my creativity and my imagination to create this other world for myself. And I would try on the clothes and I would look in the mirror and I would really have fun. Like, I'd pretend I was at all these different parties and doing all these fun things. And it was just a really magical place until it became a shameful place when I learned that my parents, there's always that moment in your life where it's like it was something you really loved, and then you learned, like, maybe it's not something people want you doing. And I learned that at around 4 years old when my dad came in one day to put a padlock on the door of my closet, because my parents were so upset that I was doing this every day. They didn't think I should spend my time with clothes. I was making a mess, and they didn't end up putting the padlock on there. But I do remember the feeling that came along with it was, this is not something I should be doing. And it's not, my parents aren't approving of it. So it kind of became this like shameful thing that I loved. And I felt a little bit guilty about like doing it. As I got older, and this is a story I recently remembered, I didn't have a lot of toys, but I did have one Cabbage Patch doll. And I loved her so much, but I could not, my parents weren't going to buy me more Cabbage Patch dolls. This was a gift from my grandparents. And I decided to take 4-H. And I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I learned how to sew and how to knit. And so I would make clothes for my doll. And I would try all the outfits on the doll. And one holiday, and my grandparents are Jewish. Like, we have Catholic and we have Jewish on one side. And for Hanukkah one year, I asked for a Cabbage Patch suitcase to put all the clothes in that I had made. And I'm going to try to make this story really short. I did not intend on telling it. But one day I was going to go and get on an airplane and go. This was right after my parents got divorced. And my dad at this time lived in Connecticut. And she was going to put me on the airplane. And I brought the suitcase for myself and for the doll. And my mom looked at me when I came out of my room and she said, "Go back in your room right now. Whatever the doll is wearing on her body is what is going on this trip. You're only bringing your suitcase, not a doll suitcase." So I go back in my room and I put all the clothes on the doll, and I come out with the doll and the big, it's like filled with clothes on the doll. So the reason why I'm sharing this story is really not only that's how much I love fashion. There was no way I was going to bring the doll without her having a change of clothes for 7 days. Like, she had to wear something new every day. But secondly, that is when I learned that no was not an option, and there was always a way to make something work.
Mhm.
And so then as I got older, my dad actually had moved to Canada, Winnipeg, Manitoba. I decided, my mom married another hippie. And at 16, I had an opportunity to go and live with my biological dad in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I wanted to go there so that I could not only get out of the circumstances I was in, I wanted to work in retail. I wanted to dress other women, and went to Winnipeg. And I've always been this tall, scrawny, lanky kid. So, talk about body image. I did not love my body. I was called chicken legs in school. I had no idea that other women didn't like their bodies. I thought it was only me. And, I think even as women, we think this because, people aren't talking about it. But then at that time, I I mean, I won't delve too much into it, but I did walk into a worse situation. My dad is an abuser, um, and I it was a very difficult time in my life. I used clothes and fashion and trying on my clothes and pretending, um, to really escape mentally from what was happening around me. Um, and I did get the opportunity to go and work retail. And I worked in my first retail store at a plus size clothing store. And I had no idea I had been hired at a plus size store. And I'll never forget my first day. And I walked in, and the clothes were, it was a woman's suiting store, and women were coming into the store and they were plus size, and I wanted to dress them so bad, and I knew that I could do it, but no one wanted my help, and I
Mm.
didn't understand why. I mean, I figured it out later on that they thought, how could this scrawny girl like help me? And
Mhm.
then, I remember the day that this woman walked into the store, and I was feeling slightly defeated because no one was wanting my help, and I had kind of used the first month or so of working there to use my imagination, because I would watch women come in, not want my help, even put their hand up like, don't help me, you can't possibly know how to dress my body. Watch them frantically go around the store and pull clothes and go in the fitting room, come out, kind of look defeated in the mirror. I could see the way they looked at themselves, and I didn't understand it because I just saw powerful women coming in. Like these were like executives, they were buying women's suiting. And they would leave the clothes in the fitting room all piled up, and they would go and just leave. And I would think to myself, oh my gosh, like I wish they would allow me to help them. I could help them. And so during that time, I imagined exactly what I would put on women's bodies. So this woman walks in, and I will never forget her. Her name is Kathy. I was 16 years old. I remember this like it was yesterday. And Kathy came in to the store, same thing, put her hand up, like did not want my help. Same thing unfolded. She goes in the fitting room. She tries on all the clothes. I see her come out of the fitting room, look at herself in the mirror, and I could see her looking at her body and looking defeated, and then leaving all the clothes and going to walk out the door. And I mustered up all my courage, and I said, "Excuse me." And she turned around just before she was leaving, and I said, "I know you said you didn't want my help. However, what do you have to lose? I mean, obviously, you drove all the way to this mall. This is the furthest store in the mall. It's the dead of winter in Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's cold outside. You had to plug your car in to even be able to start it to come here. Why don't you give me a try? I know I can help you." And she was like, "All right, fine, let's give it a try." So I gather all the clothes, all the things I would put on her, and she goes in the fitting room and she comes out, and I had her in this really fitted black top and black pants. And I see her look in the mirror, and I watch where her eyes go. And to me, that was the first time that I was like close enough to peer in and watch someone else look at their body, because I was only used to myself doing it. And I saw her eyes go to where she didn't love. And I first saw her look at her stomach area, and I watched her shoulders roll in, and I watched her look so uncomfortable in her own skin because I had put her in something fitted. But then I realized she couldn't see what I was seeing. And beside me, I had this long duster sweater. And I said, "Kathy, I want you to put this on." And she put it on. And I'm watching her eyes, and she's starting to like be a little curious about, okay, maybe she's got something here. And then, this is 1993. I put this scarf on her and just like drape it over her. And it's like this long line going down,
Mhm.
this long necklace, because the like more statement, longer necklaces were really big then. and rolled up the sleeves for her. I looked at all the details and perfected everything. And I was standing in front of her doing this, adjusting her, and I stepped to the side and then watch her in the mirror again. And her eyes changed. She wasn't just looking at what she was focused on before. She started looking at her whole body, and her eyes welled up with tears. And she looked at me and she said, I never thought this was possible. And this is the first time I've ever felt beautiful. Thank you. And I will never forget that day, because that was the moment that I realized that that was my gift to give other women. That was my power. That's what I could give. Um, and I wish at that time I would have leaned in a little more. I wish I had the support of my family. Um, I lacked a lot of confidence and I was really beaten down at that time in my life. It really wasn't until I was older that I rekindled that gift and realized. And I know I'm going on and on here. I'm going to let you ask a
Oh
question.
my gosh, it's so wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure everyone listening is like, no wonder you wanted to bring her onto the podcast. Just so incredible and so many things. And the thing that I love to look at is like the spiritual components of like life purpose, but then also like, yeah, what are we here for? Like what are our gifts?
Yeah.
And just so many aspects of your story, from the like feeling ashamed, because you were made wrong for all of the clothes, but then that shame also brought you to then start creating your own clothes for your Cabbage Patch doll. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like it pivoted you to learn how to create them. Right. And then the resourcefulness that came out of, needing to bring all the layers on the Cabbage Patch doll with you. And obviously your own body shame and like, and also the imagination, and obviously doing hypnosis and knowing the power of actually doing that. And that was a part of your story that I thought was so fascinating, of how you got so comfortable in the imagination
Yeah.
state, and just where you've been able to kind of bring your life to. And a lot of my clients challenge it before they, go through the journey, is that they're really stuck in their heads and in the details and in the facts and in the this is what's happening and the reactions, right? So to know that you have that muscle exercise of actually like going
Mm.
into the feeling state and all of that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then just bringing it together. And I know for myself, when I was going through my journey of healing my relationship with food, I hired a style consultant and really learned my colors. And I learned what, shapes to wear, what, collars to wear, not wear. Like I learned all the different aspects to really complement the body that I had. And I had no idea, that that was possible either. And so I know that it's so important for women to, part of our journey of healing is like we need to learn how to make peace with the now. Like, how can you, it's like you can't lose all the weight you want to lose in a second.
Yeah.
And this is the body you have. And consider that the longer that you wait to allow yourself to feel good and confident today, and take whatever actions you can take today, which you can't lose 100 pounds today, but you can buy some new clothes today. You can,
Yeah.
whatever it is for yourself today, like that actually catalyzes people's transformation, because it like starts with feeling good now. And then from there, and I know you've shared with me before that you've seen so many of your clients kind of lose weight as a result of
Yeah.
them getting a new wardrobe. And also would love to have you share also what you found when you would interview clients that would come to you that said, they were waiting for a year and
Oh, yes. I need
mhm,
to share that.
mhm.
Um, I just realized I didn't give the rest of the story. Can I
Yeah,
just wrap
please.
it up for
Yeah,
you?
of course.
I'm now in Sarasota, Florida. I moved here in 2006. And, some life things happened. Had a couple children, was home with the kids for a little while. My husband in 2011 lost his job and we lost everything. So this was my time where I had to step up and go back to work. And as a mom, and I think many women can relate to this when you have kids and then not realizing that you still have a skill set.
Mhm.
And I went out there and I got a job in a retail store, in a boutique, high-end boutique, and they were paying me $10 an hour because no longer did they think I was qualified because I had been home for 7 years, on and off, working and here and there. Um, and I'm just saying this story to say I realized I took the job. I was paying the babysitter $12 an hour, making $10 an hour, and I knew in like my soul as I started there that, wow, it rekindled that fire in me, right? And I knew that it was going to be a huge success. And over serving women, I was there for 8 years, serving women for those 8 years and watching in front of my eyes these transformations, much like seeing, like when I saw Kathy transform, but it going even deeper than that, and women having me go to their homes. So my side hustle was creating their wardrobe for them and curating it in their home and making their outfits and packing them for trips. And then watching these women, come back and see me in this store and say, like after they had divorced and they met another man because they were feeling good. And I got to hear all the stories and I loved it so much, and then realized one day that I can use my imagination to create a business where I could serve these women deeper and
Mhm.
really help them align who they authentically are on the outside. And in doing that, their gifts can start to be shared with the world. And so that's what I've been doing. My business started February 14 of 2019, and it has just completely, like, I leaned in, it just kind of like blew up into this amazing thing. And I came up with my 4-part framework of how to serve. And it's much like probably how you start with your clients, in that we really get to the heart of who they are
Mhm.
so that we can really determine who they authentically are, what they really truly want. And I have the opportunity to hold the space with her to discover and really lean into what she really desires, and then maximize on my superpower imagination, where I close my eyes and I envision her in that place that she wants to be, where she desires to be, and where I'm now going to help her step into that woman, and then creating a wardrobe around that. And, you mentioned about, women focusing on what they don't like on with their bodies, right? And maybe they desire to lose 100 pounds, and that's part of the desire, and that's how they want to see themselves, right, in the future. Um, and what I've found, and what I know, because I listen to your podcast, is that whatever you focus on, you just get more of that, right? So when I can teach women how to wear fitted clothing that skims their body, that's of such quality fabric, and highlights all the best features, and how to, like, I call it the cake, making that cake just lay on the body perfectly. And then how to highlight those best features with the icing, right? And all the little details. And it's interesting because how I go about doing this, when I show them how to wear their clothes, we're lining up what their lifestyle is going to be, what the lifestyle is that they desire, with what we're putting on their bodies. But we don't use things like, what are your colors? And not to say that there's
Mhm.
anything wrong with that. We don't talk about what their body type is or what they shouldn't be wearing. We only focus on what's right. And so in doing that, what I find is that they start to see their themselves as a whole person, like I mentioned before, like what I saw with Kathy, but they also stop the comparison.
Mhm.
Because the thing with beauty and fashion, and this is what I felt as a child, I thought it was superficial because I thought I was superficial for loving it. But when it can become something negative is when we're looking outside and we're looking at other women And it's great that we have Instagram and we have Facebook and Pinterest and we can look at all these fashions and get inspiration. But there can be a negative side to that if we don't go into self to really know who we are. Because once I can help her to really determine what feels great on her body and what she feels is beautiful on her body, then we can begin to exploit her uniqueness in the service of others and not focus on what other people are doing and it being a superficial type thing.
Mm. I love it so much. Just like the full blown self expression and the power of actually doing that. And, I think especially in today's society with social media and everything we're bombarded with, it's like our brains are just programmed to constantly be looking on the outside and comparing. And
Yeah,
very little are we doing that deep dive into our own souls, into our own selves, into our own feelings and, desires, and making decisions based off like, this is my who I am, and
yeah,
I just, oh my gosh, I heard a podcast the other day that was talking about how literally the most important thing that we as human beings, spiritual beings having this human experience can be doing is to understand ourselves. Because if we don't understand ourselves, then we're just making decisions left, right, and center that aren't necessarily aligned. So then you just end up left, right, and center and still unhappy at the end of the day. So it's like we cannot put off just that
yeah,
understanding and self exploration. And you're right, like the self empowerment that comes with that,
yeah.
and putting your personality through everything and that, yeah, expression out into the world. I also heard another podcast that was talking about how health, really comes from our soul being fully self expressed.
Mm.
And so we put so much emphasis on, it's the food and it's the this and it's the workouts or the lack thereof. But it's like, consider that, like, you're not understanding yourself and actually doing what feels aligned to you, whether
Yeah,
that's what you're wearing or how you're eating or whatever, is actually like putting yourself into a box that actually, creates the suffocation that leads to disease, right? It's like we're slowly kind of, so, and the power of investing in ourselves, like for myself, it's like the consistent every single time that I invest in me, and for something that feels aligned for me, it just always just continues to pay back, and the ripple effect grows. And yeah, just a wonderful thing. And my whole thing of this podcast is like, stop living for like tomorrow is happening. It's like the future's happening now,
yeah,
and it's like, what are the things that actually you want to do? And it's like, not say someday, one day, when I
yeah,
lose the weight, then I will, because I hear that all the time. When I
yeah,
lose the weight, then I'll start to, move my body in ways that I really, really want to, or then I will. It's like, no, we actually need to put that first and then be with all the fears and anxieties and stresses that come along with that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, to give you the energy and empowerment that you need to move forward powerfully. So yeah, I would love to hear some of those results that you saw. So like
Yes.
mindset call and yep, the weight and yeah.
What's interesting, so I've realized the problem that I am solving for women is the feeling of unworthiness. I've
Mm,
done so much, just having all the experiences that I've had with so many different women, and it doesn't matter if she's a size 0 or she's a size 18 or she's a, 26. Like it really doesn't matter. All women have this, we all have areas that we don't love about ourselves, and then we also all have self-limiting beliefs. And I mean, some of the statistics out there are really, really interesting, and they don't surprise me because of all the women that I've worked with over the years. But 90% of women um, do not love their bodies. 90%. Um, uh, 81% of high performing women, executive women, uh, feel like they have imposter syndrome. They don't feel enough. Um, and I think the other one is I think it's 95% of women don't feel enough. Just in
mhm.
general, don't feel enough. And the whole thing about doing something kind for yourself, right? Investing in yourself. I've done my own research on this. And when women reach out to me for the first time, where they're really desiring like complete transformation, is typically when they are just in a season of life where they have been like brought to their knees. Like they they're just so unhappy with themselves, and the woman that I serve is high performing, whether she's working outside the home or not. She's that woman that desires to be the best version of herself in every area. So if she's feeling like she's not giving enough, it really affects her negatively. And so typically what I find when a woman reaches out to me, I ask her a ton of questions. First, I ask, like, how did you find me? And typically it's Google. Google is like number one. And then I ask, okay, so then you called me, right? No. Then I went and followed you on Instagram and on Facebook. And then I started listening to podcasts you were on. And I'm like, okay. And then you called me, right? Well, no. Well, can you just tell me when you first looked me up on Google? And the average is 1 year.
Mhm.
1 year from the time she was curious and wanting and desiring change, right, with her outer appearance and investing in herself, till she actually took the action to do it. And so I've uncovered that and like tried to figure that out, and it's unworthiness. And that's what she tells me. I was waiting to reward myself when I lost the weight, when I got the promotion, when it goes on and on, right? And then after I worked with a woman for about a month, right? And she begins, number one, to lose weight and doesn't change a thing. Like typically
Mhm.
the first month, she can lose anywhere from like 10 to 12 pounds. Couple months, it's like, okay, I lost 20 pounds. Now, I know this is always going to happen when she desires to lose weight. So I'm very mindful about the clothes that we choose, that they're easy to alter. Um, but I'll ask her the question after about a month, do you wish that you would have reached out to me sooner? Or had you known what was going to happen, would you have? She's like, yes, absolutely. I would have, but I never knew it was possible.
Mhm.
And so, as women, I think we need to, be in a space of, because what I'm doing with women and what you do is you're holding the space with her, like a safe space where she can be vulnerable.
Mhm.
We're giving her permission to really go there and tell us what she desires. Most women don't even give themselves permission to do that for themselves.
Mhm.
And when she really begins to like lean into that and what she desires, who she truly is starts to come through, right? And then when she starts feeling beautiful and feeling great in her clothes and not looking at what she doesn't like, but seeing what she loves, she starts to get more of that. And this is where the real transformative power is that the feedback that I'm getting, it's not just weight loss, it's more sex. Like
Mhm.
that is
Mhm.
actually one of the biggest things that I hear. I'm like, my husband and I haven't really had that much sex until now. And all of a sudden it's like we're like, we first got together, like we're teenagers again. I hear things like my relationship with my kids got better.
Mhm.
Um, and my children seem to be doing better. I got the promotion at work.
Mhm.
What else? We go on more family trips. My husband and I go for dinner more. And the reason why they're having more fun, and the reason behind it is that um, they feel like better about the clothes they have to wear. So they're like, I want to go out because I feel pretty.
Mhm.
The feedback that I get is when they walk in the room, if they're in an executive position, the people are seeing that they're being seen,
Mhm.
and their frequency and their energy has shifted, and they're no longer consumed with self-doubt. They're just thinking about, how can I share my gifts with the world. And this is where the true magic is, and the
Mhm.
living in alignment with self.
Mhm. Yeah, you and I talked about just like the access to it all is to actually be able to have a safe place to share the shame, the
Yeah.
fears, the anxieties, like the things that we've never able to tell anybody else, right? Like you said, you had no idea any other woman felt insecure about their bodies when you felt insecure. Like that is a huge thing that I over and over hear clients say is like just the power of hearing that other women feel the same way that I do is like so transformational. And
Yeah.
like you were talking about the shame about clothes at an early age. It's like consider for the listeners listening for food buying weight. It's like you may have been totally loving the food you were eating or whatever. And then somewhere you were shamed for that. And then there goes the mind strategizing for ways to cover up and not have this. And so that, since we're not actually fully expressing or being able to say how we feel, then we're hiding food, these weird behaviors come in, sneak eating, binge eating, all these types of things, and it's like just having that space to actually allow it and say one of my favorite things that a client said recently was like, "I am just so lit up by the fact that I can actually just go out and say, 'I love a strawberry Pop-Tart.'" Is, like, incredible, and I'm like, that, like, standing ovation, you know what I mean? It's just, like,
Yeah.
so powerful just to actually claim what you actually like. It's like, these foods taste good, you're allowed to eat anything. I always say to my
Oh
clients,
my
"You're a
god.
grown-ass woman, you can make whatever decisions you want about what you wanna
Yeah.
eat," and
I
it's
I
I
love that. I
feel.
I love that so much. It just made me think I was on this podcast, I don't know, it was probably about 6 months ago, and she was related to health and wellness in some way, and then she did these rapid fire questions, and one of the questions was, "What's your favorite healthy snack?" And it just came out of my mouth. I said, "Gummy bears, of course."
Yes,
And she's like,
nice.
I said, "Healthy snack." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I don't play by the rules." So it's interesting,
Yeah.
you talk about food, and I didn't intend on talking about this, but, I was mentioning how I grew up with we literally were, like, eating the food that was in the garden. Like, I wasn't allowed processed food. I wasn't allowed candy as a child. I wasn't allowed to have sugar in any way, shape, or form. Like my birthday parties, it was carob cake, and not when they made like this is years ago when carob tasted like cardboard.
Wow.
Like it
Mhm.
looked like chocolate, and the cake looked like it would have tasted good, but it tasted horrible. And there was always weird things around food in our house. And my
Mhm.
mom definitely had, we were all thin, but there was always like a weirdness around food. There was always not enough of it. I remember always feeling like there wasn't enough.
Yeah. There's a book called what is that book called? It's a book on money. I'm gonna blank on the name. By Lynn Twist, The Soul of Money. And she
Mm,
talks about how she traveled all over and she did her own like very in-depth research and found that especially in the United States, the epidemic that she found was the not enoughness. That
mm,
like our culture is just consistently in a state of feeling lack, scarcity, not enough. And that
yeah,
energy, when that's, how we're growing up, whether it's around money, whether it's about food, whether it's about whatever,
yeah,
that affects us so much.
yeah,
And just taking on their belief systems about that. And it's just like when we can actually tap at that glass ceiling and break
mhm,
through by saying, what we're thinking and feeling some of the feelings that we've never been able to feel fully.
yeah.
It's like the abundance just rushes in, just the
Isn't it so
ocean
beautiful?
wave.
I
Oh my
never knew
god.
it existed until I tapped in to that world, and, it all has to do with who you spend your time with, but
Mhm.
also what you invest in for yourself,
Yes,
you
100%. I was
know?
thinking the exact same thing.
And
Mhm.
it's not a quick fix, fashion, life, wanting, desiring to lose weight, all of those things, that's a journey. It's a life journey. Now I know like women that are working with you, it's sustainable weight loss,
Mhm.
but it's also keeping your mind right. Like you have to
Yes.
you have to do put the reps in, you have to put the work in.
Mhm.
one of the things that I share with a lot of my clients is, and I've done this presentation. I used to do it too. I used to do these virtual presentations during COVID when people were showing up on Zooms like in their pajamas, and the company was like, "No, can you come in and speak to my team?" And it was the name of my presentation was "Get Up, Suit Up, Show Up." And what I find really interesting is that there's so much talk now about priming our days, right? Like getting up in the morning, you move your body. I get on my exercise bike and move my body. After my bike, I get into my cold tub and like shock my system and like literally chill out my brain, and write in a journal. Some people pray, like all these things about talking about priming your day. But there's a next step in that.
Mhm.
That's like we internally get ourselves going. But then there's also the self-care piece of it, of really caring for ourselves and like putting intention around, going in the shower and shaving your legs and giving yourself enough time to like wash your hair and come out and intentionally put skincare on. And if you wear makeup, put on your makeup and walk in your closet and put on your best dress on a Monday morning, and really show up, like every day. Show up. It's there's intention around it. It's an action to take. And when you do that for yourself, it is mind blowing how it shifts your brain. And you can look in the mirror before you leave for the day and say, wow, not only like mentally do I have some clarity because I did all those priming my day things, I look like $1,000,000 and I feel great. And I'm now stepping into my power and I'm going to capture my day.
Mhm.
People ask me, what's your favorite day of the week? And I'm like, it's Monday, of course,
Mhm.
because
I love
there's so
Monday
much
too.
ahead,
Mhm.
and it's what's sad is that so many women don't have that feeling of wanting to capture their day, and they don't want to be seen, and they want to hide because they don't feel worthy of showing up. Sometimes it's a matter of taking the action first,
Mhm.
right? And so I just want to touch on, I'm sorry, I'm like going all over the place here, but it just came to me, touching on the fact that, the woman that says, I'm going to do it when,
Mhm.
they don't take the action first. So then what happens is nothing changes,
Mhm.
right? And then when they do end up making the change, they make the change because they were literally brought to their knees. Like the
Mhm.
despair of how they feel is so strong that they can't not take the action.
Mhm.
But what if we got curious, which is what we talked about in the very beginning here? What if we got curious and started to make those changes and take those actions before we actually felt ready to
Yep.
do so? How could that change the trajectory, if I can say that word properly, of our lives? And how can that maybe start transforming our lives now as opposed to like waiting until we feel ready?
Ugh, God, I could share so many things, but literally, I remember, and I have this exercise in my accelerator program of having people write down like 100 things that, if anything were possible, with no considerations, no whatever, what would you be doing, having, whatever. And obviously, 100 felt like a lot, but I challenged myself and I really went for it. And as I kept writing, there were certain things that were in there that, like, I was like, I've been feeling that for a really long time. Like, when do I think I'm ever going to actually like do that? And at the time I was like working super hard, like trying to make the business go, because what I wanted to do more than anything in the world was travel the world. It's like I wanted to see all the colors and all the water and I wanted to go to Australia, and I wanted to do the Great Barrier Reef. And like, I'd see people traveling on, social media. And it was just like, my brain was just like, oh, and I
Yeah.
was putting it in the someday, one day category. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I was like, okay, I'm a coach. I tell people all the time, like, if you say you want it, like, go out there and make it happen. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I put a GoFundMe account up online, and told people that if they donated to my travel funds, I would send them personal emails and let them know all of the things and send them photos
Love
and what I was learning. Well, I didn't make any money from the GoFundMe account, but just by my taking that action and being like, I don't care what it takes, we're doing this. Like
it.
literally the second that I put the period on the description of the GoFundMe account and hit submit, there was no air in the room. There was no window open. I had a vision board that had all these travel images and everything that had been up for so long in
Yeah.
front of me. And literally, this vision board just slowly unravels and just falls to the floor. Like, there was no reason that thing should have ever, like, I'm telling you, it was up for months without ever moving.
I love
And so then the next series of months, like I kind of forgot about it, but all of a sudden, like my business actually started moving. I had like clients coming in like I never had before. And it was like, and then my sister said to me one day, she was like, what about that travel thing? And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. So I like look at my bank account. I literally hadn't even looked at it because I was really moving that whole summer. And I was wanting to raise $10,000 in my account, like right there. And like 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Bali and like left the country for 2 years, traveled 12 countries in 2 years. And like had all the stories, got to Australia, completely ran out of money, was completely like, oh my gosh, I need to go back home. I failed, I miscalculated my finances and all this. And luckily I had a coach at the time. And
yeah.
he was like, yeah, you could go home. He's like, or you could just keep going on this lifelong dream that you've always wanted and just trust that it's all going to work out. And within 2 weeks of me posting photos, I had two new clients. I was back in the green again just because they were attracted to the fact that I was traveling in Australia and it was something they always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it's just like life starts working
Mm.
once you put whatever
Mhm.
it is that you want, right? And that's why I'm always asking people, like, when you lose the weight, then what will become possible for you? Let's
Yeah.
put those dreams that you have in the now and start taking action on those things happening now. And let's watch how everything starts to align for
Yeah.
you to get that. And like I could tell so many stories. I always wanted to have a romantic partner bring me to Europe and travel around Europe together. And same thing, it was like a year and a half ago. I was like, when am I ever gonna? I was like, I just need to do this now. Like, even if there's no partner, like, let me just. So I put up this thing that I was actually going to bring clients overseas and we were going to do this European trip. Same thing, didn't have anybody sign up, but then my now boyfriend invited me to go to Rome, all things paid for, went to the Ryder Cup, went to, soccer
Yeah.
game, traveled all around and had this. And literally, I ended up sitting and like I had this viewpoint that I just was like kept imagining being of like over the water. I literally was crying. Like my boyfriend had no idea. It was just like this quiet cry of like, it's
Love.
here, I'm getting
It's
emotional thinking about it because it's
yeah.
just like,
I'm
yeah,
and I'm getting chills, but you're making me think about, I think it's difficult to, as the woman, especially in being an entrepreneur, or being even being like the breadwinner for your family and that kind of thing, because many women are. Um, we want to control the outcome and we're always worried, like that we're like, go back to there's not enough, right? I remember the day that I decided to leave my job that had been working in, that was like my career for 8 years. And it was, and once I shifted it was a mind shift. And it was actually Tony Robbins said something on a podcast. I was driving into work one day and I was listening to this podcast, and I may have heard something similar to this before, but you know how when you're like, it's like the moment is just right and you hear it when you need to hear it.
yeah.
So Tony Robbins says, and I'd been thinking about a business, but it was money that was holding me back because financially we could not have any gap in income. Like there had to be, if I was going to do what I was going to do, it had to be a lateral move. There was no, like, I couldn't invest in a company, like do this whole thing. So I'm listening to Tony Robbins, and he says on the podcast, if you know that you have a gift, if you know you have a gift and you don't fully lean into it and live out that gift and share it on a deep level, you're selfish.
Mm.
And I thought, well, the whole thing was I wasn't sure if I should do it because I didn't want to be selfish. Like I thought it will negatively affect my family or we won't have enough money and like this whole not enough thing. But hearing it, and like I said, I might have heard something like that before, but hearing it, it just stopped me like dead in my tracks. I thought, oh my gosh. Like I knew I couldn't unknow that I had a gift. I knew I had the gift. So what was I going to do with it? Just like halfway do it, work in a store, right? And help women and transform, but maybe not on a deep level and go do my side hustle and, you know, put their wardrobes together. And I thought, no, I don't need to try to control the outcome of this. I just need to lean in to knowing what my gift is and allowing my life and things around me to unfold. And it changes the way you see the world,
Yeah.
like from this small not enoughness to like opening up and you get to like look all around you and then life always is happening for us, but then you get to see those opportunities. You get to see it unfold around you. And I'll never forget, I had it all planned out, right? I give my 2 weeks notice at the store. I waited until I got my bonus because I was afraid she wasn't going to give me my bonus. And I had booked out my calendar for 2 weeks after I gave my notice to like start working with clients because I booked out. Like I had people already that were going to
Mm.
follow me. And she lets me go on like
Oh.
not on the spot, but like 2 days later. And I was like, oh my gosh, we need the money. Like I started to like get a little worried, right? And I had a client that was going to come into the store that worked with me yearly. She comes from North Carolina. And I had to call her and say, I'm not going to be at the store to help you shop. I don't know if I need to set you up with someone else. And she said, can you take me shopping somewhere else? Because the only reason why I go to the store is for you anyway. And she came, brought her into this store. And it was like 3 days after the woman had let me go and walked into this boutique and walked up to the owner. And I said, I'm Jessica. And she goes, the Jessica? And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, I know who you are. We have a lot of the same clients. People talk about you all the time. She said, whatever we can do to help in the store, like we'll clean up for you. If you need a size, let us know. You just help your client. And she said, but before you get started, can you come and talk to me in the back? And we go and talk. And she said, whatever you sell today, I'm giving you 10%. I
Wow.
didn't even ask for it,
Wow.
nor was I going to take money from the client because I had a commitment. Like I was supposed to help her at the store. So help her. Like I had the time of my life because I wasn't working for somebody else. I just like made a mess in the store. She dressed her in all these wonderful clothes, made her all these outfits, took pictures of the outfits. And after, 3.5 hours, I mean, she spent over $10,000 that day. And it was more than she had ever spent at one time with me before in the other store. And and they said, "Can we take you for coffee?" And I said, "Well, I'll be right back. I just need to talk to the owner of the store." And so they leave, and I was going to meet them, and she cuts me the check, for
Mm.
over 1,000, whatever, however much it was, but it was more than I made at 2 week working 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
at the boutique.
Oh my
And she
goodness.
let me go 2 weeks sooner. And there was my 2 weeks handed to me in a check. I only
Oh
worked for
my
3.5 hours for it.
It's just the best. Like the universe gives us all those little winks of like when we actually are doing what we're meant to be doing, like we will make the finances, Like I just
Yes.
started going to a women's networking meeting before I even left nursing. And I just started sharing about how much hypnosis changed my life as far as realizing these things. I had this woman call me while I was taking a nap. I'm 26 years old. She got my
Yeah.
number, whatever. And she was like, I'm ready to sign up. I have my card here. I didn't even know how to take payments. I didn't even know how much I was charging, like nothing. So it's just like, all right, well, guess we're doing this thing. But the first time that I ever made $1,000 doing hypnosis, I sold like a 4-session hypnosis package. I was like, okay, I can really do this. And
Yeah.
it's really been just like surrendering to like listening to whatever I'm being asked to do and following the energy, really, and it really has always been starting with an investment in myself. Like, if I never invested in learning, to be a life coach, which, came out of a pain point of me not loving nursing, and I was looking for something positive to do with my career. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, now I'm investing to become an NLP practitioner and hypnotherapist myself. And now I'm going to hire a business coach who does NLP. Like, and you meet the people, and just it just keeps going out and out and out, and just trusting everybody, like we met through an investment that I made, and it's just
Yeah.
following the energy and
It is.
trusting that whatever feels good is actually the right answer. And it can be scary to trust that, in ourselves. And same thing with for my clients with food. It's like really like strawberry Pop Tarts. Like that feels like my highest. And I'm like, okay, I actually want to challenge you to have that food, despite all
Yeah.
of the health facts and your gluten intolerance and all these types of things. It's like, in order to free yourself of this, we need to go towards what you actually desire, no matter what that is. And
Yeah.
consider that like that's the gateway to the freedom or the next step or the next awareness, But it's like it can feel so scary, but like, ooh, it's so worth it. There's just
It's so
nothing
worth it.
else.
It's so interesting because when I ask these women that I'm working with, like, what did you do to lose the weight? What happened? And they haven't changed anything. They've been
That's right.
going out to dinner more.
Right,
Like, I
exactly.
mean, maybe their portions are less because they're not thinking about it because they're feeling fulfilled.
Hmm.
But they can't specifically say, "Well, I'm still having my glass of wine." I don't
Hmm.
know. Like, I don't know what it is. But it's,
Exactly.
they're not letting it, have power over them anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're their
You
power.
Yes, I love it. You and I spoke on our first conversation together about the opposite of addiction being connection,
Yeah.
so just like having that support for yourself. Like, women are social creatures for sure, being around other women, and
Mhm.
having conversations. For me, it was so huge to have conversations that were actually like about real things. Like, I felt like I was always surrounded by a very surface level. I hated every family, gathering. I just was so like feeling like, what the hell? Like, and that led to me feeling depressed and miserable, and then helping me gain weight. It's just like you're not hanging out with maybe the soul line people that, are really up to something in life and creating something and having higher level conversations. And yeah, the first $10,000 mastermind, I was terrified. I did not have the money. I was living in Australia, all the things. And it was for business and had this money goal. And I didn't hit the money goal in the amount of time, but like when I really looked at what happened during this period of time, and like one of the best things was the group of 23 incredible women who are also investing in themselves at the same rate, right?
Mhm.
Up to something in life, deepening conversations that led me to network with other things. Like, the conversations changed, but and like when we're investing in little like $100 little programs, it's like then you're with other people that value themselves and whatever their goal is at $100, and it's like the richness of that is not very rich, so
Yeah.
it's just but just I think both of us are pointing to the fact that like when you say yes to what you want, and I'm not talking about like you just want it because you think it's what you should have, or material things or whatever. Cause I've also, made mistakes in that avenue of being like, oh, well, they had success doing that, so let me invest 6 grand in that too. And it didn't work for me because it wasn't actually me that was saying like this
Mhm.
podcast for me was something I always wanted to do. Right. And it's like this podcast has brought all of the gifts in the world, being able to connect
Mhm.
with people like you, et cetera, clients. But I've had other people who do podcasts and zilch, but it's like, but you don't do it because I'm doing it. Do it if your soul is asking, like whatever platform you feel called to, like use
Yeah.
that one, because whatever you actually feel aligned to is what's the answer. So a part of
Well,
our
that's
client
being
journey.
feminine. It's being in that feminine state and right? And making the decisions from the place of the knowing. And that comes like I feel it when I make decisions, I have to like feel it in my heart. It's like this energy thing that happens. I feel like I really pay attention when I don't use that or sometimes as we grow up, we learn to turn it off because
Yeah.
maybe our mothers told us, like, no, don't pay attention to that. That's not right. You shouldn't feel that. You shouldn't think that. And so it becomes like a switch, like we turn it off and we don't know we turned it off, which is what I did for many years. But then when you turn it on and then you start paying attention to it and you listen to it, it tells you like everything you need to know.
Yes, 100%.
Then
Mhm.
when you start listening to it and you hear it and you feel it, but then you start spending time with other women that are doing the same thing, it's like mind blowing. It is the
Mhm.
most incredible thing.
Mhm.
And I didn't necessarily mean to like lead into this, but I don't know why our conversation is just going very fluid. Because I think we probably think very similarly. Um, my dream, because I started to be around those women when I retired the people in my life that weren't serving me, and I wasn't really serving them either because they really had taken my energy away and my power wasn't I wasn't living in my power. But once I started to find those people and
Mhm.
I started investing in myself. I mean,
Mhm.
I go on so many podcasts, not just because I want to share the story and like impact other people. Like it's the connections to women like
Mhm.
you that are doing the podcast that I'm like,
Mhm.
this is everything, right?
Yes. Yes.
And just expanding my network. And I started to feel like, okay, I'm serving women and I'm helping to transform their lives from the outside in. What if I was able to deepen that transformation and bring it and allow them to transcend beyond the transformation, right?
Mhm.
And doing that by bringing together those women with that thinking, right? That really understood the abundance, that really understood what it was like to live your purpose, to spend time with those women, right? So can I share
Yes, I
this?
was just gonna say perfect
I know you
segue
haven't
into your
asked me to
sharing
share
what
it,
yes, absolutely.
so big changes have recently happened in the business. So I've been working one-on-one with women for many, many years, helping to make these transformations. And I thought, how can I deepen this? How can I serve more women? And how can I get those incredible women that are in my network to be meeting up with the women that I'm serving and curating this group of amazing experts like yourself, right? That can go, I'm going from the outside in, they're going from the inside out. And it's like this perfect, like, cocktail. Not only that, but getting those like minded women together in one space where those conversations can happen, where this expansive thinking can happen, and in those conversations innovation starts to happen in this world, and that's where the magic is.
Mhm.
And so I thought, how can I do this? I'm
Mhm.
not so good with the how. I'm great with the what because I can close my eyes and I can see it. But I realized I had to spend the money, I had to hire the right teams. And I made some mistakes along the way, but I ended up with the great team to help me create an app. Never did I want to have use Facebook, not to say there's anything wrong with that, but I didn't want anyone else to own it. And I wanted the energy around it to feel really safe for women to share their true, authentic selves.
Mhm.
And so we just went live Friday well, we went, our sales page opened last Tuesday, but we went live with the app last Friday. I did my first webinar. And everything that I imagined, it was like more than that. And the women after I did the speaking, because they got to kind of meet each other too within the app. And I had a couple of women that are existing clients that are top tier clients, a diamond membership, reach out to me crying. Like they said, we thought we understood what you were doing, but we didn't realize the magnitude of it. So I'll share with you. Can I share with you what it is?
Mhm.
A
Yes,
little emotional
please.
this whole thing.
Yes.
So within the app, I'm sharing my digital course, which is an 8 module course. And it's basically a DIY, right? Of the formula and the frameworks that I've come up with my 25 plus years experience. And so that you can literally go on and just buy the course if that's what you desire. Our middle tier of membership, which is called Emerald, is you get the digital course plus you get the community.
Mhm.
And the community is, a community of like-minded women that really have the aligned thinking that we're talking about, the expansive thinking, they can hold the space with other women to feel that vulnerability, to have the conversations, right? To be innovative. Um, and then also me going on there monthly and doing webinars and live demonstrations and going deeper into each module of my course. But then also monthly having networking events where I moderate and each woman can share about themselves, something that they want to give to the group, maybe something they need, and then those connections happening amongst those women. And then monthly having guest expert speakers like yourself come on and share your gift,
Mm.
right? And lead my woman who she wants to be the best version of herself in every area, right? Whether that be mindset, coaching, business, all the things she would want in one centralized place that we've curated for her. So that's my Emerald tier, which just, Emerald and Sapphire just opened up. And then we have the Diamond membership, which is the working one-on-one with me. And we have another app that I didn't expect to get right away that I had envisioned, and it came to me, where people have their own personalized lookbook and virtual closet.
Mm.
So I can make outfits for them and it's right on their phone. It's like the coolest thing ever. And they also have access to my curated lines. I have my own, we're much like a store. And so everything I ever imagined and envisioned and knew the woman that I serve would want, it's all come to life.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
incredible. And so what is your website? How can people find it?
Um, the website is csjstyling.com. All the information you would want to know is on there about the memberships, but I also have some free resources. And I think you have the links. Probably it's going to go in the show notes.
Yes.
We have a wardrobe edit blueprint that those that are listening or watching can have. And that blueprint, basically you just put your email in, and it's a download of how on a very actionable steps you can take in your wardrobe today to begin setting it up for success, to know how to release the things that are not serving you. And so it's very basic, but really tactical. And all my clients, even when they're working with me, they have the download. It's like in their bathroom because they refer back to it.
Nice.
Um, and all my social media platforms, we work really hard to put lots of great content on there as well. So it's at the Jessica Papineau on Instagram, Customized Styling by Jessica on Facebook, and then I think it's still Jessica Papineau on YouTube as well. And we're also on um, LinkedIn, which LinkedIn has been fun lately. I don't know if you're on there, but
I
there's
do like
some,
LinkedIn.
it's a
It
lot,
is
it's a
fun.
lot more fun than it used to be. It's not so
Yes,
dry.
it is. I
Yeah.
agree with you. People are getting a little bit more creative and yeah, service providing on there. Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. And everybody listening, definitely go check out Jessica's stuff. I got your blueprint as well, and it's awesome. So thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah, just thank you for following your own intuition and your own heart to actually create something. I love that you decided to have it be a transformation from the inside out instead of just the outside in.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is 100% connected. And earlier you were mentioning about, listening to those little inner intuitions, that little guidance. And, just for anyone listening, it's like probably if I was to put like a bigger umbrella over the brand, it's like intuitive living, of just like when we can actually take the noise out of the fears, the considerations, the concerns, the actual tangible finances, what happens if, this happens in my family or in my marriage or my relationship, or they say something to me, like when we can actually rise above that, right? And if our clients use the heal method, so hypnosis and emotional mastery to actually move past it, and I can't wait to support your clients on your platform, like just act. I love getting my hands dirty. It must be like my nursing. Like I feel like I'm like putting in the IV and like giving them what they need to like come
Yeah,
out of that in a very quick, rapid way so that they can start getting present, like actually just
yeah,
present. And it's, the same way when I describe to people, like, it might have been a long time since you've had a huge cry because a lot of my clients won't allow themselves to actually go there. And that's part of the problem. But like, if we can remember times when we've had big cries and there's that like euphoric kind
yeah,
of like expansion after the cry, and it's like, it's very quiet, but it feels really safe. It's like,
yeah,
that's the space, of like we're all good things, all creations, like where you can actually listen to like what your own inner truth is and whatever, and like realize like there is nothing wrong, and from here we can create anything to
yeah.
align with your authentic self, to like learn the lasting self-care and also listen to that inner guidance. And I heard a podcast recently that was saying that like all of our life purposes, no matter what we do or don't do, it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But what's the difference is our experience as we are experiencing life. And
Yeah.
like when we actually say yes, like to investing in ourselves, it's like you're putting that future in front of you. And so then naturally it's bringing up all of the things on purpose to have
Yes.
the opportunity to like heal through it so that you can get there faster. So, um, and I also heard that like when people talk about hell, it's like the fourth dimension. So it's like we're living in the third dimension. The fourth dimension apparently is like very terrible.
Yeah.
And it's basically if we have a very tumultuous inner experience and we're constantly stressed and anxious and fearful and whatever, it's like that's when we can kind of get trapped there. So
Yes.
if that's not motivation to like get your inner state,
Yeah.
feeling good for all of the like human benefits that we get, but also maybe afterlife benefits that we get. And on top of that, like for me as a nurse, like my thing, like you were talking about how people come to you and they're like on their knees and like crying in despair. It's like my intention with this podcast and why I'm so action driven and that we both are so into that for, everybody that we speak to is because I don't want people to end up like I saw them in the hospital where they're on their deathbeds at 40 and 50 years old because they have been suppressing their inner truth. They have no idea who they are, and going against the grain that way. So, to everyone listening, go ahead.
I was just gonna say about, really so many people don't realize that they're missing the joy
Mm,
because they haven't allowed themselves to fully experience the temporary pain.
yes. Oh,
And it
this
is
is so,
temporary. It's
yes, it's
temporary,
temporary.
but it does feel the I've gone through so much trauma, so and so much healing, but once I leaned in fully to the
Yes.
pain
Yes.
and allowed it like a wave to flow through me, there's another wave that will come up. But when you slowly it's temporary pain. Your body and your mind and all of it, it's not gonna make you feel it all at one time.
Hmm.
That's just not kind. But if you start to allow it to move through, it's like the most like I never knew that what joy was.
Hmm.
I
I
never
can
knew
relate.
what joy was until I leaned into the temporary pain.
Mhm.
And so, even now, and I'm sure you experience this when you do something new, you challenge yourself, you do something different, and those feelings come up again, like the self-limiting beliefs or whatever those feelings were before that you were like, yeah, I worked through that. No, you didn't. No. It'll always
Mhm.
come up. It rears its
Uh-huh.
ugly head, right?
Mhm.
And then I got to live through it again. And I just did that actually Friday, right before
Mhm.
I went on to do my webinar. I freaked out and
Uh-huh.
I leaned in
Absolutely.
and I let it flow through me. And then I felt that feeling you're talking about, the elation, the safe space. And I performed at my highest level
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
allowed myself to feel what I needed to feel to show up in my power.
Mhm. It's all part of it. It's riding the wave, learning how to master it. My TEDx talk was called How to Master Your Emotions in 90 Seconds. And it's research shows it only takes 90 seconds for an emotion to move through. So fear of weight gain, fear of husband abandoning you, fear of whatever it is that's underneath the surface of whatever you're trying to control in your life. And, is literally the access to, everything that we're talking to joy.
Yeah.
And Joy is an amazing feeling to feel, especially when it's super authentic, different than happiness. Joy is like, to me, it's like this expansive, like
Oh,
opening and just like
yeah,
forward, like just a little bit forward moving of just so beautiful. So
yeah.
that's our
Well,
commitment
thank
to everyone that
you.
you get to experience the joy. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. Definitely check out all of Jessica's stuff. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. And for everyone else listening, just start asking yourself those bigger questions. What if you were to actually say yes to yourself today? Thank you so much, and we'll see you for the next episode.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for having me.
If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.